You ever notice how the first few days after a raise feel almost electric? You check your bank account and the number looks different, bigger, more serious. You start doing the math in your head. Okay, this changes things. Maybe now you won't feel that tightness in your chest when rent hits. Maybe now you won't hesitate before booking a flight to visit family. Maybe now you'll finally feel comfortable. And then a few months go by. The paycheck is still bigger, but somehow the feeling isn't. You're still thinking about money, still calculating, still feeling like you're not quite there yet. It's strange, isn't it? Because we've been taught that earning more is the solution. If you're stressed about money, make more. If you feel behind, make more. If you don't feel rich, make more. So why doesn't it work the way we expect? I don't think most people misunderstand money because they're irresponsible or lazy. I think they misunderstand it because we're taught to focus on income as the main character in the story. Salary is visible. It's easy to compare. It's the number you put on a job application or tell your parents about how work is going. But income isn't the full story, and sometimes it's not even the most important part. When most people imagine feeling rich, they picture a higher income, 6 figures, a big jump, a breakthrough. The assumption is simple. More money equals more security, more breathing room, more peace. The problem is that income doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists inside a lifestyle, and lifestyles expand. There's something that happens almost automatically when your income increases. You don't sit down and decide to inflate your lifestyle. You don't say, now that I make more, I will carefully increase my expenses in proportion. It just happens. You move to a slightly nicer place. Nothing crazy, just safer, a little more space. You upgrade the car because the old one feels out of alignment with who you are now. You start saying yes to dinners you used to decline. You travel differently. You buy the higher quality version of things because, well, you can. Each decision feels small, justified, reasonable. But together, they quietly raise your baseline. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's not a moral failure, it's human nature. Behavioral economists like Daniel Kahneman have talked about how quickly humans adapt to improvements. It's sometimes called the hedonic treadmill. You get something new, and for a moment it feels like progress. Then your brain recalibrates. What once felt like a luxury becomes normal, and once it's normal, losing it feels uncomfortable. That's the key. It's not that we don't enjoy upgrades, we do. It's that we adapt so quickly that the emotional boost fades, but the financial commitment stays. So now you're earning more, but you also need more. And when you need more, you don't feel rich, you feel dependent. There's another layer to this that's even more subtle. We don't judge wealth in absolute terms. We judge it relative to other people. Psychologist Leon Festinger introduced the idea of social comparison theory. The basic concept is that we evaluate ourselves by comparing to those around us. It's not just about money, it's about success, attractiveness, intelligence. But money might be the loudest one. If you earn $80,000 in a town where most people earn $40,000, your perception shifts. Nothing changed about your bank account, but your internal ranking did. And in today's world, comparison isn't limited to your neighborhood. Platforms like Instagram constantly expose you to curated snapshots of people's lives. You see vacations, watches, new houses, business wins. You rarely see the debt, the stress, the arguments about money behind the scenes. The more you earn, the more your reference group tends to move upward. When you were making $40,000, 6 figures looked rich. When you hit 6 figures, suddenly you're aware of people making double that. The goalpost shifts quietly, consistently. And if your definition of rich is always one level up from where you are, you'll never quite feel it. But there's something even deeper than lifestyle and comparison. It's the difference between income and security. We tend to equate the two. Higher income must mean higher security, right? Not necessarily. Security doesn't come from how much you make. It comes from the gap between what you make and what you need. I've seen people earning modest salaries who sleep well at night because their expenses are controlled, they have savings set aside, and they don't feel stretched. And I've seen high earners who feel constant pressure because their lifestyle demands a large machine to keep running. Big mortgage, car payments, tuition, subscriptions, social expectations. When your life requires a high income to sustain itself, your income stops feeling like freedom. It starts feeling like an obligation. Imagine two scenarios. In one, your monthly expenses are $3,000 and you earn $6,000. You have margin. If something unexpected happens, you can absorb it. If you need to take a few months to rethink your career, you have room. In the second scenario, your monthly expenses are $12,000 and you earn $15,000. On paper, you're making more, but your margin is thinner relative to the size of your life. A disruption feels heavier. A job loss feels catastrophic. The second person might look richer, but the first person often feels richer. Because feeling rich isn't about numbers alone. It's about how fragile your situation feels. And fragility is exhausting. There's another identity component here, too. When income rises, our identity often rises with it. We see ourselves as someone who should live at a certain level now, a certain zip code, a certain standard. And once that identity forms, downgrading feels like failure. So even if you sense that your lifestyle has outpaced your comfort, it's hard to scale back, not because you can't afford it technically, but because it feels like moving backward. This is why earning more doesn't automatically reduce stress. It can actually amplify it if your obligations expand at the same rate. Income is an amplifier. It magnifies whatever habits you already have. If your habit is to spend what you earn, more income means more spending. If your habit is to invest a portion before you ever see it, more income accelerates your future security. The turning point for most people isn't a specific salary number. It's a realization. It's the moment you understand that feeling rich is more about control than consumption. Control over your time, control over your commitments, control over whether you can say no. When you have margin, you gain options. You can leave a job that's draining you without immediate panic. You can help a family member without destabilizing your own life. You can take a risk that might pay off in the long term because you're not clinging to survival. That's when something shifts internally. You stop obsessing over the next income milestone as the sole solution. You start thinking differently about increases. Instead of asking, what can I upgrade, you ask, what can I strengthen? When a raise comes in, maybe part of it improves your quality of life. That's human. But maybe part of it quietly builds your foundation, an emergency fund, investments that compound over time, less reliance on your next paycheck. Compound interest is simple math, but psychologically it's powerful. Money that earns money reduces the pressure on you to earn every dollar through effort alone. Over time, that reduces anxiety in a way a new car never will. And this doesn't require extreme frugality or living like a monk. It's not about denying yourself every comfort. It's about being intentional when your income grows. Maybe you let your lifestyle increase at half the speed of your salary. Maybe you keep your fixed expenses stable for a few years, even as your earnings rise. That gap between income and lifestyle becomes your quiet advantage. Over time, that gap turns into resilience, and resilience feels rich. You start to notice that you're less reactive. A surprise expense doesn't ruin your week. A slow month at work doesn't spiral into worst-case thinking. You make decisions from a place of steadiness instead of urgency. That steadiness is hard to measure, but you feel it. You feel it when you swipe your card and don't flinch, when you open your banking app and see a cushion instead of a cliff, when you realize you could step away from something that isn't aligned without your entire life collapsing.
That's wealth in its quieter form. So if you've been earning more but still don't feel rich, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not ungrateful. You're not bad with money. You're just experiencing the natural pull of adaptation and comparison in a system that constantly tells you bigger is better. The real shift isn't about chasing a specific number. It's about redefining what that number is supposed to do for you. If it's meant to buy peace, then peace has to be designed into your structure. If it's meant to create freedom, then freedom has to be prioritized over status. Income matters, it absolutely does, but income alone doesn't create security. The relationship between income and lifestyle does. And once you see that, you can start making changes that feel less frantic and more intentional.
You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. You don't have to cut everything that brings you joy. You just have to widen the gap slowly. Let your earnings outpace your obligations. Let your assets grow quietly in the background. Let your sense of enough stabilize instead of constantly escalating. Over time, you'll notice something subtle. You're not checking your account with tension anymore. You're not chasing every raise like it's the final answer. You're not comparing yourself as intensely. You feel steadier. And steadiness, more than any flashy number, is what rich actually feels like. Progress doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's just the quiet decision to let your income grow without letting your lifestyle run ahead of you. And that's not about perfection. It's about direction. Small shifts, consistent awareness, a little more margin each year. That's how earning more eventually starts to feel like something different. Not pressure, but peace.